Okay, in just a moment, the president is going to be giving his first press conference since, I guess, November. But interestingly, recently, I'm sure as the whole world will know, that there are an increasing amount of Democrats demanding his stepping down because of faculties, which has been long ongoing. There have been kind of mockery videos all over the world of his continued gaffes, if you will. And most recently, he kind of mocked the media, which, you know, if like somebody's inebriated, probably something that they would say or think to themselves they wouldn't say, but when you're inebriated, you might say. So it could be a sign for his blabbing. He would just basically, he was being kind of like childish and silly with the media. I guess, you know, they were just like blah blah blah, all of, you know, asking questions at the same time or something. So he was just like blah, 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 blah. I mean, he was just being, you know, silly to the media. But that could be signs of declining faculty, that, you know, your inhibitions are basically saying things that you wouldn't say normally. You might think it to yourself, but you wouldn't say it because you're supposed to be professional. But at any rate, there is talks about the 25th Amendment, and some say that only the vice president can initiate that. And that probably wasn't a whole well thought out thing, because, yeah, I can't see the vice president wanting to initiate that, because if he does eventually get kicked out, or he has to step down, maybe, like, for example, if he was to get reelected, and, you know, he's not going to last long, obviously she's going to become the president. So why would she initiate that for him to step down? Especially since she's his running mate. This is not even logical. Anywho's, but we shall see what he says and how he does. Oh, it is well after, I think it's like 7:20 Eastern Standard Time, and he was supposed to start it at 6:30, and now they can't even give a time that he will start. They're saying some things were delayed at the NATO summit or whatever, and so they have no idea. But soon, he'll be here soon. Anyways. So the press conference is kind of a big deal for more than one reason. Just in general, it's always kind of a big deal for the President of the United States giving a press conference, but in particular for somebody who has increasing leaders claiming that he should step down because he's going to be, you know, have rapid fire questions shot at him. So that's really going to challenge his faculties to be able to be quick, think quickly, answer quickly, or whatever. So we shall see how it goes. His performance, he gave the interview and said that his performance on the first debate was poor because he wasn't feeling well and he was tired. And so, I mean, it is a lot to ask for somebody in their 80s to have this kind of schedule that he does, because generally people retire in their 60s. Anywho's, I think that there should be some kind of law that if somebody truly, genuinely fears the competency of a leader, there should be some type of petition for, you know, I mean, it's his own party who is wanting him to step down. But here's the thing about that. They didn't ask him to step down while he was running for office, right? During his 4 years, they didn't ask him to step down. They're only asking him to step down because they're afraid he will lose. So is that really genuine concern? Like, why weren't they concerned? Like, they're all trying to, like, badmouth his wife, like she's this greedy, power-hungry, you know, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys who are demanding he step down, you're only doing this while he's running for president? Again, okay, so here we go. We got some action. Here comes the man. So, yeah, please be seated. They should have asked him to step down.
Good evening.
I mean, he's been gaffing like this for a long time. It's not new, like at all.
Members was a great success. It's especially momentous because it represented the 75th year, the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget that NATO grew out of the wreckage of World War II.
Not sure if he's using a teleprompter or not. By the time I upload this to YouTube, you can go ahead and use closed caption, because I'm going to be commentating, if you will.
A compact of collective defense. Standing together, they knew we'd
The whole world's watching.
An attack on one would be treated as an attack on all.
He called some of his gaffes were like calling himself a black woman. I think he was referring to Kamala, but
Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression.
It is a lot, though, because if he's not using teleprompter, he has to memorize speeches. He has to remember things. And then answer questions, quick fire. So that's kind of demanding for any average person, actually.
Roared back to life. Because once again, a murderous madman was on the march.
Oh, boy.
This time, no one cowered in appeasement, especially the United States.
Let's see. I don't know why they don't allow closed captions on YouTube. I wish they would.
I directed the intelligence community to be
oh boy.
declassified so I could start building an international coalition to oppose the invasion. Then in February, some of you remember,
so his speech is, which is probably, he had time to memorize it. It's one thing, but it's when the press starts asking questions. That's where it can get tricky for him. If he has actual, declining faculties, as the accusation is. But shame on all of those Democrats who are only now asking him to step down. Shame on them. He's been running the world. Or somebody has.
But the Ukrainian people, backed by a coalition to help build, stopped them. Today, Kyiv still stands. And NATO stands stronger than it has ever been. During the week of this summit,
yeah, and Russia and China and North Korea are all working now to create their own NATO. Basically, is the Russian NATO, if you will. He's got some powerful allies, if you will. China, North Korea. North Korea is sending troops over to Ukraine, by the way.
Meanwhile, my predecessor has made it clear.
Tell you what, North Korea might go crazy if we continue to send weapons over there, which we are bound to do because we are under agreement to them when they denuclearized. Does he have to cuss?
The day after Putin invaded Ukraine, here's what he said. It was genius.
Is what?
It was wonderful.
Ew.
Forgot that, but that's exactly what he said.
I didn't know about that, actually.
But I made it clear. A strong NATO is essential to American security. And I believe the obligation of Article 5 is sacred. And I would remind all Americans, Article 5 is invoked only once in NATO's long history. And that was to defend America after 9/11. I made it clear that I will not bow down to Putin. I will not walk away from Ukraine. I will keep NATO strong. That's exactly what we did. I
know one thing, Putin does not want Trump to be president. He's already made that clear. I watched a speech he said the other day, and he was addressing concerns about exactly what did he mean about he was going to end the war in Ukraine. He was like, I would like to know exactly what his plans are, something like that. I don't think he has any, because he's not worried about Biden staying in president. That says a lot right there. When Putin has no concern. He doesn't like the things he's doing, but he knows that we're there's countries bound to support Ukraine, because when we signed a treaty with them when they got rid of their nukes, it left them defenseless. And look at them now. And I do believe if he had nukes, he would have already nuked, and we would be in a third world war. I do believe that if Zelensky had nukes, he would have used them. This is just from things he said. So.
To Reagan, to me, still holds today. America cannot retreat from the world. We must lead the world. We're an indispensable nation, as Madeleine Albright wrote.
I don't know about that. Some of the things Americans are doing is hurting the world, in my opinion. But we were once upon a time were a good example to the world on our Constitution and just the things that a lot of things in countries took role model after our Constitution, which can do so much good, but it can also be used for evil, unfortunately. Oh boy, he's delusional on that one. I am poor, and grocery costs are really hard on me right now because I have to eat healthy, and healthy food is so expensive. I mean, I don't have to eat healthy. You should eat healthy, but I specifically have to eat healthy.
That would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax. $2,500 a year.
What?
Second.
Oh yeah. I mentioned in a video before I'm like, dude, you cannot go after the billionaires. You can't attack them. That was the stupidest thing I think he's ever done. Was attacking the well, maybe not the dumbest, but he literally said, we have 1,000, he called them trillionaires, but he caught his little boo-boo there, and 1,000 billionaires in America, and they pay I think it's like 8.4% in taxes, and he wants them to pay 24% taxes. Can you imagine going from paying 8% to 24%? Like, dude, really? You just lost the support of billionaires. Wow.
To bring the hostages home, to create a path for peace and stability in the Middle East.
I know people think of billionaires like they're just greedy, evil people, but actually, when people... I'm sorry, but I have to exclude Mark Zuckerberg because he's just done too many shady things. But there's billionaires who you don't even know about them, and they give a lot to the world. You know, they use their money for good. So I'm not about attacking billionaires, you know. As long as they're doing good, if they're good stewards of their money, then they're blessed. That's how I look at it. Sometimes you get money and you do bad things with it. But if you live righteously with your money, there's nothing wrong with it.
Our leadership matters. Our partnerships matter. This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions.
Okay, here we go.
People to call on here. Roy, Jeff Mason.
I hope you're having a blessed day, by the way.
Mr. President,
good and hot outside. You're on my ass.
Has hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open.
Oh boy, first one out the gate. Somebody wants them step down.
Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership
go in grace, dude. That's what they're saying. But they didn't ask him to step down before he was running. His gaffes are no different now than they were the last 2 years or so. Sorry, but they're not. All they care about is whether or not they're going to win. They didn't care about him. They didn't care about how he was doing when he was running with these gaffes. Didn't ask him to step down then, so boo on all of them. Boo.
Vice President Trump to be vice president.
What?
I think she's not qualified to be president.
Oh, my goodness. Did y'all just hear what just happened? First question out the gate.
The consideration.
He called Vice President Trump. I think that's what he just did. Guys.
I beat him once, and I will beat him again. Secondly, the idea, I served in the Senate a long time. The idea that senators and congressmen running for office worry about the ticket is not unusual. And I might add, there are at least 5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower...
This video ends suddenly. It's because sometimes when I got my camera app on, it makes my phone hot and it shuts down. So.
Way to go in this campaign. And so I'm just going to keep moving.
He is not stepping down.
Look, I got more work to do. We got more work to finish.
Trump better hope he wins, because if you lose to somebody who's losing his faculties and his own party wants him to step down, that'll be pretty bad. That'll be pretty bad. So. In fact, he lost him to begin with, but I know there's controversial whether he lost or not. That was the first time ever, though, that we had a voting system like that during a pandemic, so it was pretty sketchy. You can't know whether there was cheating or not. I don't think it's possible. They did catch some things afterwards, but I'm for the sole traditional type of voting. I don't like them changing. I didn't like them changing the things the way that they did. I felt that there was some shady things going on, just from things that I witnessed personally, but apparently they couldn't get the evidence together to either that or the judges they were fighting and the courts they were fighting just wasn't having it. Oh boy, here we go. Second question out the gate. Talk about his gaffes. Where were these media people the last 4 years when he was running? Where were they?
Saying off the record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Did you see any damage to our standing might leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? And the Putin piece, I was talking about Putin, and I said, and now, at the very end, I said, here, I mean, Putin, I said, no,
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, Zelensky.
Oh dear. Uh-oh. Oh
And then
man, this is
I had
bad.
5 other names.
He's had 2 questions and he's had two gaffes. I believe he called Trump vice president in his first question, and now he's booped in the second question.
We haven't
Little boops.
had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear in that conference, I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders, heads of state, in thanking me, saying the reason we're together is because of Biden. Because Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is, well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time. And find me a world leader who didn't think it was. Next one, Nancy Cordes, CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling.
And the third question out the gate is all about him stepping down. I don't think there's going to be any people here to ask him anything about anything but him stepping down. And it irks me. Not because they're asking him to step down. It irks me because they're only now asking him to step down. He's been literally the man behind the red button, and he's been having the same issues. There's nothing new with him. Maybe it's increasing. I don't know. But I've watched for the last 4 years people making fun of him. Specific news medias, not these ones, but like, I think there's an Australian network. The ones who like to just gaff at presidents, regardless who's in office, they've been covering him and his gaffes for 4 long years. This is not a new issue. It's not. And they didn't care about it then. So how are they going to act concerned about his ability to run the president? Or run, be the president, run the show, but they just think he won't win. I mean, he's been falling down off of bikes, off of steps. He's been having to be guided. Like, literally, there's where Secret Service agents were having to literally point where he's supposed to turn. I mean, stuff like that. And then he misses his turn. I mean, that's been going on for a while. They're just so afraid that he's going to lose to Trump. Which, by the way, how come Trump hasn't announced his running partner yet? I find that odd. Didn't he by now, the last time, announce?
That way, we grow the economy, and the wealthy still do very well.
Yeah, until you hike their taxes up to 25% from 8%. Sorry, guys.
What have we not done that isn't working right now? And so we got more to do. We got to finish the job. And by the way, I come from the corporate state of the world. Delaware has more corporations than...
Yeah, you trying to build an empire over there in Russia. Got that Putin so mad at America because you're over there taxing the Ukrainians and conniving with that former president, not Zelensky, but the one before him. And then openly demanding the prosecutor who's investigating him to be fired and got him fired. Yeah.
Apartments and the like and homes are limited to 5%.
I think, and then Trump, he's got his empire in the Middle East. I think businessmen who've got empires, and businesses who have conflict of interest in taking over, handling decisions with other countries because it might affect their empire. You know what I mean? I think it's a problem.
Not a joke. And guess what? We had the Treasury Department do a study. When unions do better, everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example, remember when we talked about getting the computer chip industry back in the United States? It used to be 40% of the industry. We invented the chip. 40% of the industry is in the United States. And former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world.
Oh, man, that's so wrong. Find the cheapest labor in the world. How oppressive is that? You want to go to these countries where...
I was told not to go over to Europe, to Asia, including
They're
Europe and Asia.
basically slave wages.
Going to South Korea, convincing them to invest $20 billion in the United States to build computer chip factories. And I asked why when I finally decided to do it. And the answer was because you have the safest economy in the world, and you have the best workers in the world. So the whole idea here is we've invested over $50 billion.
They have transferred so much manufacturing to China, who bragged by 2025 he will have 85% of manufacturing contracts in the world, and he has succeeded.
It's happening. It's happening. It's going to grow economies. All three. And by the way, red states and blue states. Manufacturers as much in red states and blue states. I've made no distinction. So my generic point is that the idea that we can't continue to build and grow the economy, make it fair. Like I said,
he's going on and on and on, and this, like, the question he asked and answered was asked and answered like 5 minutes ago. Now he's just rambling. Maybe he's just in the talking mood. But, like, the question was answered. He didn't.
Your Vice President Kamala Harris
Oh boy, here we go.
to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
Oh, look, they're like, they're not, they're like, why are they even questioning her abilities? That is so weird. What was that about? Or they just want to have him talk about her, build confidence with the Democrats. They're not concerned about who's running and how they can run an office. They're only concerned about winning. That's it. That's all they care about.
Felicia Schwartz, Financial Times.
Financial Times.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next?
And the fourth question now. The gate is just about his ability.
Acknowledge that you have today.
That's sad. Not one of them has.
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and you're evening around 8.
Oh, he's old. Oh my gosh, that's such a stupid question.
What I said was, instead of my...
Literally, you're talking about him going to bed earlier because he's in his 80s. Girl.
It'd be smarter for me to
That's all you got? That's all you could come up with for a question? You had your shining moment to talk to the President of the United States, and that's what you come up with? Oh my goodness. I'm trying to be nice here.
I'm not talking about...
Like, I'm in my 50s and I go to bed. I need more sleep, but, you know, I do have medical conditions also. But there's nothing wrong with being in the 80s and going to bed sooner. I think that actually starts taking place in your 60s. It's not uncommon. Like,
I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing. And I have, I don't know how many, don't hold me to it, roughly 20 major events. Some of them thousands of people showing up. And so, I just think it's better. I always have an...
now he's rambling again. Okay, your question has been answered. Dude, go to the next person.
Keep going, not stop. I just gotta just pace myself a little more.
Yeah.
Pace myself. And the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15...
Well, that's wise. I mean, as you do get older, you do have to schedule your stuff with your stamina and your fatigue levels.
And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things.
What?
Add things all the time. Very good. I'm catching hell from my wife. Anyway.
I think he's meaning that they're adding to his schedule. Dude, did you lose your place? Okay, next question.
Sorry, Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Associated Press. AP, here we go.
President, 2 questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons.
And the actual first question is being presented. Thank you.
Unless those limitations are lifted, are you reconsidering your position on that?
Now there's an actual legitimate question being presented.
Leaders of your own party have said that they are not worried about that debate.
Zelensky, if he had his way, we would be right smack in the middle of that war, and we would already be at nuclear war.
Reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at debate stage or somewhere else.
First thing...
I bet they wished when they did that nuclear denuclearization pact that they had more specifics on what kind of support you're going to get when something happens.
We've allowed Zelensky...
Not one country's gone in there and given ground support,
in the
just
near
weapons.
term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. But if he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense? It wouldn't. The question is,
I think that he would have, though, the comments he made.
is what we were getting to him. I've gotten a more long-range capacity as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, my
Your commander-in-chief? Who would that be?
Staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they should and shouldn't do, how far they should win. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
bad nights, sir. Have you reassured the American people that you won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage?
Oh, and he had to add that, too.
well, I tell you what,
He's talking about when he mentioned in the interview that his debate was a bad night. That's what he
am I
said.
getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who's got more major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week. So
Yeah, for all the people that you're allowing to come in illegally, far surpassing the cap that's supposed to be this established by Congress. You got millions coming in, so.
what do we got here?
I think the cap's like a couple 100,000 or something like that. Certainly isn't 5-6 million per year. I know that.
The radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are
It
you?
is in the millions. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I know it's in the millions per year.
Elections in the U.S. have consequences around the world.
Do they
You
now?
have pretty high standing in Europe. I just asked President Macron about you, and he said we are happy to have him as the President of the United States. But there is a concern that many people in Poland and across Europe are worried that the former president may win the election. And there's a lot of concern that Donald Trump may weaken NATO, stop supporting Ukraine, or push Ukraine
I'm not sure if that's a legitimate question. I don't
territories to Russia.
I don't know that he weakened the NATO when he was in office.
About it.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I don't know what specific action that he's referring to.
If Donald Trump
And really, truly, NATO, here's the thing about presidents. It's not them making decisions when it comes to NATO. People that think that, I don't know where they're coming from. The military leaders are the advisors to the president. Yes, he's the commander-in-chief.
How can I say this
Okay?
without
But the military leaders and the intelligence agencies, they're running the show.
eliminating my
People need to understand that. Especially when it comes to foreign policies. They are the advisors of the president. He advises the president what should be done, and the president says, okay, that sounds good to me. How does the president have any clue what's going on in foreign countries but what he's told by the leaders? So I don't know how anybody could say that one president over another is harming anything when it comes to NATO. To me, that just doesn't even sound legitimate.
foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian. That worries, as I can tell you.
I don't remember, maybe I'm wrong, I don't ever remember any commander-in-chief going completely against all the military advisors and the intelligence agencies who want something specifically done, and regarding NATO, saying, nope, I'm not doing that. I have no knowledge of any president ever doing that. So, if there's any weakening of NATO, it's because of the leaders of the military and intelligence agencies.
No one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after he got elected in Geneva. And he was talking about what we should do, what we couldn't be in Eastern Europe, etc. And I said, you're looking for the Finlandization of Ukraine. I said, you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4
They
weeks
have
later, I got
targeted
a call.
Finland. They
That's
have.
not true.
Pretty
Called 5
boldly,
months
actually.
later, from the president of Finland, could he come and see me? in my office. I invited him to the Oval Office. We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes. I beg your pardon?
Dude, speak up.
And so Finland joined NATO. 800-mile border is a significant, and they were already allies, but they weren't part of NATO. And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall when he said it publicly in a closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks.
Now keep in mind, he's gone from the NATO to this. I'm sure he had a break in between, so.
More secure because of it. And by the way, I was able to get 50 other nations, 50 to support Ukraine. 50. And we're able to bring about a coalition between
50-0. What?
And Asia, Japan, South Korea. I just met with, we talked about AUKUS, and we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with the new arrangement that exists in the world. The Cold War is over. The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it?
Well, I don't know. There's a Cold War going on with North Korea and South Korea. South Korea, oh my goodness. North Korea is sending poo-poo bags, literally balloons filled with feces and trash. And then North Korea sending troops over to Ukraine while Russia continues to threaten and intimidate America with nuclear war. That sounds kind of like a Cold War to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
It was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a broader partnership that seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago.
The mic holder.
So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia.
What?
And whether or not, in a second term, you would pursue that, if you could describe that strategy to us. And along the way, could you also tell us whether you think, just to follow up on Felicia's question, that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago, or with President Xi, that a few years from now...
Oh my goodness, dude, I hate it when they have these really long questions. It's like you're giving a speech. Seriously?
We discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others raised, the future of China's involvement, what they're going to do. What they're doing with Russia in terms of accommodating, facilitating, they're getting access to additional, they're not supplying weapons themselves, they're supplying mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons. And China's position is basically, and I've spent more time with Xi Jinping than any world leader has, over 90 hours since being vice president all the way through, for real. And by the way, I had all my notes. But my point is that she believes that China is a large enough market that they can entice any country, including European countries, to invest there.
I would say the word should be intimidate rather than entice, like what China did to Italy.
What's happened is
held supplies ransom unless they get contracts.
You have to make it clear China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity, along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that
Yeah, North Korea is really, they just joined hands, literally, in a new agreement with Russia. They're basically creating their new Russian NATO is what I call it. They've got troops either en route or already there in Ukraine, and that's really bad, because when Ukrainian soldiers start dying, I mean, not Ukrainian, but North Korean soldiers start dying in Ukraine because of arms that we're sending them, I don't think North Korean leader is going to take that lightly. But he knew going in that we are their supplier, because we do have that agreement with them, and you should be thankful, the world should be thankful for the agreement that we have with Ukraine, because they did denuclearize so many decades ago, and now look what's happening. There would be Third World War if they had not done that, if we had not entered into that agreement. So people get mad because we're spending money and supporting them. They have to understand we would be in Third World War had he not denuclearized. If you listen to the statements that Zelensky had actually said. So. I mean, Putin's using nuclear type weapons on them. So I'm very confident had Zelensky had those kind of weapons, he would have used them. I do believe that. And that would have retaliated. We would be at Third World War. I truly believe that. So we're bound to continue to support them.
Not a billion, but a lot of people in the market. And so they were doing it. But that got curtailed when we started saying we're going to play by the same rules. For example, the idea they don't abide by the international rules related to subsidizing products by the government funding. So guess what? They're not going to be able to export their electric vehicles to the United States without a significant tariff. Others are doing the same thing around the world. But it is a concern. It is a concern that you have both China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, countries that are not necessarily coordinated in the past, looking to figure out how they can have impact.
They are. I think they are coordinated, though.
That impact? Yes, I do.
I think they've made it clear.
To talk about the detail of it in public. And I think you'll see that some of our European friends are going to be curtailing their investment in Russia, in China, as long as China continues to have this indirect help to Russia in terms of being able to help their economy as well as help them as a consequence of that, their ability to fight in Ukraine. The other thing that we've talked a lot about is that, and I raised it, and I didn't hear any, I can't swear that everyone agreed because not everybody got to talk about it, but we need a new industrial policy in the West. For example,
I don't think he needs to go there. Can we just get to the next question?
As well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability
I'm going to pause this.
all the defense.
Oh my goodness. He's really going on and on and on.
Freelancer on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look,
He just goes on and on and on.
I'm dealing with Xi right now, and direct contact with him. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader.
Now, I think in the difference between him and Trump, I think Trump would try. I could be wrong, but I think he would at least try.
Is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's
Well,
ready
that's-
to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem.
I think if an enemy is willing to talk to you,
in this war that he is supposed
to meet with you on a professional level, I think you should at least try. I mean, maybe I'm wrong with that, but I think you should at least try.
Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life. But they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed or wounded.
Yep.
Over a million people.
Horrible war. So many displaced people, and the sad thing is, you got people, conflicts around the world. They don't even get media coverage. So many conflicts. So many people needing refugee status, and refugee status is being abused. And I know there's a lot of legitimate refugees, but a lot of them is just being abused.
They lie like hell through the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And
one of his gaffes was when Egypt was not allowing people to flee from the Gaza, and I was mad. I was mad what Egypt was doing. I thought that was wrong. And he blamed Mexico. He mixed up Egypt and Mexico, and I'm like, I hope the Mexican president doesn't take that personal. He just realizes he was just out of his mind in the moment. But he said because Mexico wouldn't open the gates. Oh my gosh. I don't know how Egypt felt about him mixing up Egypt and Mexico.
including when Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to get word on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space. That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anyone else has. We just put together with today. I brought on. I asked
A whole lot of flexing is going on right now.
The group from the South Pacific.
That's what I see.
Australia, New Zealand.
Us sending over our support for South Korea.
I already mentioned Australia.
Uh-oh.
And I met twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, China wants to take over Taiwan. So you've got North Korea sending support to Ukraine to help Russia. And then you've got China wanting to take over Taiwan. And we're stretched so thin right now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about whether I've changed anything that's happening with Israel and Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got immediate contact with Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli workers...
That is so wrong. What most people do not know, because the media hid it from them, was that Israel, from the day that they attacked them and slaughtered them on October 7th, they were literally sending rockets by the thousands, that each rocket's ability to kill, the amount of people it could have killed, they would have killed millions of people in Israel, had their rockets met their target. Many of them were intercepted, good to their good defense, but that was going on daily. They were under attack, and the media hid that from the world. They hid it, that they were literally under attack, and you had people in Israel, basically having to hang out in bomb shelters, and the whole world didn't get to know that they were constantly continuing to be under attack. They keep saying they were attacked on October 7th. No, they were not attacked on October 7th. They were successfully attacked on October 7th. They were attacked every single day by thousands of rockets they fired at Israel. Some of them met their targets. There were other casualties. There was more damage, but nobody talked about that. All they heard was the damage being done to Gaza, and that makes me angry. And it makes me sad that the media is so evil like that, to hide that fact.
That's why when I went to Israel,
and eventually, the more they took into Gaza, the less the attacks occurred, because they were taking them out.
To Israelis and members of the War Cabinet and with BB, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere. Go after the people who did the job.
I felt that if they could have done anything different, that they should have demanded, hold sanctions against Egypt for not helping them to get to safety. The ones, that weren't actively fighting them back. They were very resistant for a while, and they should have gone in there and just taken them and forced them to safety.
And all this criticism I wouldn't provide when the weapons they used. I'm not providing 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel.
But then on the other side, you have to remember, they were the ones that chose to be under hospitals and by schools. They were sending rockets to cause great bodily harm and they didn't care where their rockets went. They were shooting anything and everything they could into Israel, sending thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rockets at Israel, endlessly, all night, all day. Of course, they don't want you to know that. I mean, I think I live streamed some of that. I covered that. I like to go after things that the media is hiding.
Hamas is not popular now. And so there's a lot of moving parts. I just have to keep moving to make sure that we get as much done as we can toward a ceasefire, and get those. And by the way, look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But then again,
I don't know what he's talking about. Your numbers in Israel? What? Next question, please.
In 2020, you referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was...
He didn't even answer the question.
Gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and domestic division. And I think, I won't put words in his
She
mouth.
very politely told him that he did not answer her question after all that speech.
Give me credit for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson and maybe before that to get a major piece of legislation passed.
Last question. Yay.
Haley's Bull script.
I don't know why presidents act like he said he got legislation passed. Actually, you don't get anything passed. The legislators pass it, and you sign it or veto it.
Are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy.
Oh boy, here we go.
How you're thinking of this right now. It seems like your answer is clear. But they're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way? about whether how the next week or two goes would inform your
Am I using that way, sir?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
Dude, he's already answered that question. You're asking him to say... Oh, my Lord. Okay, I'm just going to shut up.
I've seen, let them see me out there. Let me see them out, you know, for the longest time it was, you know, Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, you know, anyway. And so what I'm doing is what I've been doing. I think we've done over 20 major events, from Wisconsin to North Carolina to anyway, to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people already there. And look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization that anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers knocking on doors, making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls. We have headquarters, I forget exactly how many, I want to cite a number and then find out I'm off, but we have scores of headquarters in all
headquarters.
The toss-up states. We're organized, we're moving, and that's awful hard to replace in the near term. And
well,
so,
anyways, I think he's rambled quite a bit, to the point where, one, he didn't even answer the question.
Very proud of what I've done in the Senate.
He's only had a couple of gaffes so far.
I was chairman of the Relations Committee for a long time, and I was chairman or ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
But the point is, it's only the Democrats who act like his faculties are declining, but none of these congressmen asking him to step aside, none of them had one iota of concern while he was running the United States of America as Commander-in-Chief. Not one, at any time that I know of, said anything about his inabilities. That says a lot. They should be ashamed of themselves. Okay then. Alrighty then.
What are we doing?
That's sad that your Democratic legislators will rise up by the flock to say that our president is declining in his faculties only when he's trying to run again. So these same legislators who say that he's incompetent were silent at his incompetency for the last 4 years. Wow. That's disgusting.
And I'm not being critical, just observing. The bulk of the press, what are you talking about that for? Democracy. And you did. Democracy's not an issue. Democracy's not an issue.
We're a republic, but whatever. We're a republic as long as you can keep it.
Thought of it right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy...
Pledge allegiance to the United States
based on this court?
and to the republic for which it stands.
Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service? Eliminate the Department of Education? Make sure, I mean, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why I didn't really say hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job because there's so much at stake.
You had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about
they just keep coming at him.
And you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election?
Nope. He's already made that position clear. And that tells you a lot right there.
Two things.
He's not going to take it.
I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape. Okay?
When?
Although I do have a little problem with my left foot because it's not as sensitive because I broke my foot and didn't wear the boot. But I'm good. I'm tested every single day on my neurological capacity, the decisions I make every day. You talk to my staff
That's not even reasonable.
Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been in part initiated by me. I remember when the staff, I said,
When did he take the test? They're not asking him that question.
I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after...
This is interesting that he says that, because in the interview, I believe it was NBC, one of those mainstream media outlets, he refused. They made a big point that he refused. So I don't know what test he's referring to.
If the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out.
He's not finishing his sentence.
You don't ask Trump for his, okay?
Oh boy.
I laid it all out.
Then why'd you refuse to take a test in the last interview?
I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think there's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it.
It's not neurological, there's a specific competency
I'll
test.
ask you another question. No matter
But
what
whatever.
I did, no one's going to be satisfied.
Well, that's probably
Did you
true
have
right
7
there.
docs? Did you have 2? What did you have? Did you do this? How many times? So, I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam, I'll do it. But that's where I am. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions on a day-to-day basis when it comes to support for Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door on further considering lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention...
Oh, please do not. Oh, my word. Who's pushing for that?
Are they free to vote their conscience?
Oh, my gosh. No, we will not. Oh, okay. I'm done. That just kind of made me mad.
I forget how many votes I won in the primary.
Who's, oh, I'm going to have to look some research into that. Who's pushing that?
All of a sudden, I show up at
That's
the
what I want to
convention,
know.
everybody says, we want somebody else. That's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Sure. Look. To end this with this, I served in the Senate a long time. I understand the impetus
The what?
of candidates running for local office and whether they think the topic can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least a purple, it was a red state when I started, in terms of when you now talk red and blue. I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of their candidate. If they think that
Overall, I think he's done pretty good with this.
Biden the top is going to hurt them,
As far as
they're going to run away.
keeping his train of thought, although he rambles a lot, I think he did have a couple gaffes in his first 2 questions.
In their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way,
I'm for him staying in office, because if he really is, I don't want the Democrats to win. That's my thing. But is he incompetent? Is he losing his faculties? Is he a danger to stay in office?
likely voters,
I don't really think so, because I think that
unlikely voters vote.
they would have called him out
The bottom line is all the polling data right
while he was running
now, I
in
think is premature.
the office and not
Really hadn't even started.
rerunning, campaigning.
Started in earnest.
They're only coming out with this
Most of the
now.
time it doesn't start till after
Okay.
September.
That's my
Labor
point.
Day.
So
So, a lot can happen.
but that's it for now.
I'm the best call. I know. I believe
If
I'm
you've
the best
watched
qualified to
this whole
govern.
thing,
And I think I'm the best
thanks for
qualified to
watching,
win.
and I hope you have a blessed day. And I have a lot of different things. If you're first time to my channel, I have a lot of different things on my channel.
We talk about
I have gaming videos, Sims, Roblox. I have crafting, a craft playlist. Go to my channel homepage. I have a lot of crafts.
you have anyone follow me that
Acrylic pour painting, crochet, various types of crafts. I do various vlogs, episode types of series on antiques, mostly historical book antiques, funny videos, interesting things on the internet, stuff like that. My dog videos, random blogs.
There's no way you can win.
I'm like the Walmart channel, a little bit of everything.
No one's saying that. No one says that.
Oh my gosh. What the heck? Now they're going crazy. Is he gonna blah 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 them like he did the other night? He went blah 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 at them. Oh my gosh. Now look at he's laughing. He's look at him. Oh my gosh. You're just asking for an insult to Trump. Come on now. You know that's all you're going to get. See? Bye. Look at it. Blah, blah, blah. Dude, they're leaving. Stop.